This tastes like something from a gas station. You actually charged people for this. The room went silent. Every head turned. I wanted to disappear. But that stranger near the door? He hadn't left. He was writing something down. My name is Delia. I'm 33 years old and I own a small neighborhood bakery called Lemon and Salt. I grew up in a Greek-American family where food was everything. My mother baked at home the way some people pray, quietly, consistently, with her whole heart. I inherited that. What I didn't inherit was the family's idea of success. My father built a restaurant from nothing, and my older brother Devon stepped right into that world beside him. Together, they became the family's real legacy, the ones worth talking about at dinner, the ones whose names meant something. My path looked different. At 29, I left a stable accounting job, took my savings, got a small loan, and opened a bakery. The family called it cute. They called it risky. Devon called it a phase. It wasn't fancy. No exposed brick, no Instagram aesthetic. Just good bread, honest pastries, and flour on my apron every single morning. I wasn't rich or glamorous, and my name wasn't on a restaurant marquee. But I had something none of them expected. Patience. And I've been very, very patient. If you've ever started something small while the people closest to you looked the other way, you already know how Delia feels. And if someone has ever called your dream unrealistic while you were still building it in the dark, this story is for you. Have you ever built something from nothing while people who should have believed in you laughed instead? Subscribe at that question, hit close, and click like. It helps more than you know. The soft launch was 14 months in the making. 14 months of early mornings, failed batches, quiet wins, and 0 days off. I wanted it to feel like something. I personally called family members, texted cousins, sent Devon a handwritten note. I wanted them there. I wanted them to see what I'd made. Devon arrived 40 minutes late with his business partner in tow. He walked in loud, surveying the space like a landlord inspecting a rental. "It's quaint," he said, not quietly. "Very quaint." I kept smiling. I kept moving. There were maybe 20 people inside. Neighbors, 2 couples I didn't recognize, a woman who'd walked in off the street with her daughter, paying customers, real ones. Then Devon picked up my honey walnut roll. I watched him do it. He turned it over in his hand like he was examining a suspicious piece of mail, took a large, deliberate bite, and made a face that he absolutely intended for everyone to see. "This tastes like something from a gas station. You actually charged people for this?" A child laughed because adults laughed. His partner laughed. Devon was already moving to the next thing, sweeping his arm toward my customers. "Don't let her charge you full price. She's still learning." I looked at my father. He was standing near the window with a coffee cup in his hand. He saw everything. He said nothing, just sipped. Slowly. His silence sat heavier in my chest than Devon's words did. Then I watched the woman near the display case, the one who'd come in off the street with her daughter. The one who had a pastry bag already in her hand, quietly set the bag back down on the counter. She gathered her daughter and walked out without making eye contact. My first real sale of the day. Gone. I gripped the edge of the counter and held it together. Smiled at the next person in line. Handed someone their change. But something had shifted inside me. Clean and final. Like a door closing on a room I'd been standing in too long. That was the moment I stopped wanting their approval. I just wanted to win. 2 weeks after the soft launch, my cousin Mara called to ask how the family dinner had gone. I had no idea what she was talking about. There had been a dinner, a real sit-down conversation about expanding my father's restaurant into a second location. Strategy, financing, timeline. I was not invited. No one called. No one texted. I found out through Mara, who assumed, obviously, that I already knew. When she realized I didn't, she got quiet. Devon said it was a business conversation, she told me carefully. "He said you run a hobby shop?" I thanked her and got off the phone. The second thing happened about a month later. A vendor I'd been working with since I first opened, a flour supplier I genuinely liked. A man who'd given me a fair price when I was just starting out sent me a message saying he was adjusting my account's order minimum due to account risk. I knew that phrase. I'd used it myself in my accounting days. It meant someone had said something. I called Devon. He picked up on the third ring, relaxed and unbothered. "I'm just being honest with people, Dee. Someone has to be." He didn't deny it, he said it like a favor. The third blow came from a printed page. A local business journal ran a profile on Devon's restaurant expansion. It was a full piece. His vision, his growth strategy, a photo of him outside the original location looking capable and serious. My father was quoted in it. He talked about Devon's instincts, his drive, his future. I was mentioned once. My father called Lemon and Salt a little side project she's been tinkering with. That quote found its way through the community the way bad news always does. Fast and without mercy. Someone texted it to me. Someone else emailed it. I read it alone at my prep table at 5 in the morning, flour already on my hands, the oven warming behind me. I didn't cry. I almost did, but I turned up the oven temperature instead. Grief is easier when your hands are busy. Here's what none of them knew. 6 months before the soft launch, I had started entering my baked goods into regional and national amateur food competitions. I entered under a pen name, Elena's Kitchen, because I didn't want Devon making jokes about it, and I didn't want the pressure of family commentary before I'd figured out if I was actually good enough. What they didn't know was that Elena's Kitchen had already won twice, and the judges had been asking questions about who was behind the name. A food media company had quietly found my competition entries and reached out. We'd been in contact for months. I told no one. I didn't want to jinx it. I didn't want to hand Devon one more fragile thing to pick apart before it was solid. And that stranger at the soft launch, the one writing things down while Devon was performing for the room. I'd noticed him. I told myself it was nothing. A food blogger, maybe. Someone killing time. I kept my head down. I kept baking. I told myself one more week. Just one more week. Petra called me on a Thursday evening, and I almost didn't pick up. She's my older cousin, the one the family doesn't talk about much at holiday dinners. Years ago, she walked away from my father's restaurant after a disagreement that was never fully explained to the rest of us. She built her own career in food event coordination after that, quiet, respected, completely separate from the family orbit. She'd seen the business journal, quote, "He did the same thing to me," she said. "Don't let it become your story." We talked for 2 hours. Then she told me about the man from my soft launch. His name was James Okafor. He was a regional food critic with a byline in a nationally read food lifestyle publication. Petra had a contact at the publication, and she made a careful, discreet inquiry. Okafor had filed a draft review. Nothing published yet, but it existed. I sat down on my kitchen floor when she told me that. Actually sat down on the floor. Then Devon announced it publicly. He was opening the second restaurant location 2 blocks from Lemon and Salt, bringing real dining to the neighborhood, the announcement read. My father co-signed the lease. Family members congratulated Devon in a group chat I was still a member of. My regulars started asking careful questions. A local blogger wrote a post speculating whether the new restaurant would crowd out the little bakery on Clement Street. I read everything. I said nothing publicly. I called Petra. I worked longer hours. I trusted her, and I waited. The waiting was the hardest part, not because I doubted myself, but because doubt has a way of finding the cracks at 4 in the morning when you're exhausted and alone. I kept baking. I kept waiting. It was a Tuesday. I remember because I always do my flour inventory on Tuesdays, and I was halfway through the count when my phone started moving across the counter from the vibrations. The review was live. The title read, "The Bakery No One Told Me About and Why That's a Crime." James Okafor wrote about the smell of browned butter and citrus that hit him before he even reached the counter. He wrote about the texture of the honey walnut roll, a thing of quiet genius, he called it. He described Lemon and Salt as one of the most emotionally honest bakeries I've encountered in years. He named me, full name, Delia, in a nationally distributed publication, and then, near the end of the piece, he connected the dots. He wrote that the pen name Elena's Kitchen, behind 2 regional competition wins that had quietly impressed the food competition circuit, belonged to the same woman behind the counter at Lemon and Salt. He named me there too. My phone stopped being functional within the hour. A line formed outside before I had the door unlocked. People I had never met were tagging the bakery in posts, sharing the review, asking when they could get the honey walnut roll. Devon called at noon. His voice was warm in a way I hadn't heard in years. Why didn't you tell us? We would have supported you. This is huge for the family. I let him finish. Then I spoke slowly because I wanted every word to land clearly. You told 20 people my bakery was a gas station. You killed a sale on my opening day. You called it a hobby to Dad's face and a liability to my vendors. And now it's huge for the family. He started to respond. I hung up. That afternoon, my father came to the bakery. He didn't call ahead. He stood in the line of strangers all the way at the back. and he waited his turn like everyone else. He didn't cut ahead. He didn't announce himself. When he reached the counter, he ordered the honey walnut roll. He paid full price. He looked at me for a long moment, and his eyes were wet, and he didn't say much of anything. I handed it to him without a word. It wasn't forgiveness, but it was something, and I let him have it. Petra called me the next morning with one final piece of news. 2 of Devon's investors for the second location had pulled back after reading the review. One of them, it turned out, had been at the soft launch. He'd heard Devon's comments. He'd watched the woman put the pastry bag down and walk out. He hadn't forgotten. 3 months later, Lemon and Salt had a weekend waitlist. A regional grocery chain reached out about a wholesale inquiry. I hired 2 part-time employees, both women who'd been told at some point that their skills weren't serious enough. I understood that feeling. Devon's second location opened. Quietly, without the neighborhood moment he'd been planning for. The neighborhood already had its place. They'd already chosen. My father comes in on Saturday mornings now. He sits in the corner with a newspaper and orders the same thing every week. He has never said the words directly, but he comes back. Every week he comes back. I used to bake hoping they'd notice. Now I bake because it's mine. Fully, completely mine. They'll call it luck. They'll call it timing. That I was the one in the kitchen at 5 in the morning when they were all still asleep. That's not luck. That's just what quiet people do when no one's watching. If someone in your life has ever called your dream a hobby or a little project, I want to hear from you. Drop your story in the comments. You deserve to be heard. And click like to help this story reach others who need it. If you stayed until the end, you're probably one of the quiet ones too. The ones building in the background. The ones who don't announce, they just deliver. This channel is for you. Subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next, because the next story, it's gonna hit just as hard, maybe harder.